so here I've set up the main battle of Ocana, which is one of the smaller battles in this scenario. You can see the erasing's worked fine. Grease pencil is a great thing. The gloss. One of the few times I'm in favor of gloss is on player aids because you can mark them up nicely. Anyway, what we have. First of all, the Cav battle. I think if it was using the special rules for Ocana, which it probably should have been, the Spaniards wouldn't have been able to do anything because they wouldn't have a leader. But beyond that, their troops also were under some penalties. So let's take a look at what we have. So for Ocana, we have several choices. First is the historical scenario, which is what we're playing. And it gives you guidance to set up in the sense that you still have a lot of freedom in terms of which units, what stacking, etc. to go with. You know what it doesn't tell me is what my order status is at the beginning of the game. I'm assuming that each of my commanders has an order set. Now I'm going to use the written orders, the 4th level, not the highest level of written orders, which is the, hey, screw it man, here are your orders, you try to figure them out, which doesn't work, you know, with one player per side as far as I'm concerned. Works with one player per commander. Now, immediately you see a problem, which is that the Spaniards have one leader, and they have a 6-hex radius around him that they can command. Now, there is a special rule, or a rule in there, that he's allowed to issue 1 order per turn. He's got no one to listen to him, though. And you'll see some other things with the Spanish Cav coming up, why they would be worse than usual. They basically can't do anything. And we got more of them over here. What else do we have? So for the French, Joseph is over here with his guard in the fortified section, slightly weaker than usual. Soule is in command. He'll be up on the hill. He's got Mortier within easy range to send orders to. I've got to figure out what kind of orders I'm going to start Sebastiani with his Cav. It's probably going to involve driving the Cav off and then maybe trying to make some kind of outflanking move to subvert this second line of Spaniards. That's required. It might not be what I had chosen. There are reasons to defend in depth, but there are also reasons to have a solid front line. So what about the special? Okay, so then the second option that they give for a scenario is the Cav fight, which is what we tried to do. And then I got, you know, basically it was over and then I got too sick to continue. And I'm feeling a lot better now, which is great. You know, I blew my whole New Year's Eve. I had some plans, but that's gone. And nice long weekend. I took an extra day off, etc. That's gone. But at least I'm not dying in the hospital. We think there's still something wrong. Then the third option is this morning moves, which is the opening, you know, kind of engagement battle. It starts at an earlier hour, so the game goes more turns. Why they chose to shift the time rather than just say, hey, the base scenario starts on, I don't know, you know, turn 5. I'm not sure, but that's okay. It's a reasonable choice. It's just not one that I am used to seeing. Now, what's weird here is this starts off talking about discrepancies about the early morning. Okay, great. The position is unknown. Most of it is strange. So the position of the army west of the town and in town do not change. Okay, so we keep, I guess, the setup from the other. The main line east of town is on a line going north, following well the real geographic north on the map, starting from the town. You know, I looked at this and said, I don't want to do a meeting engagement. Worse than that, if the commander's over here in Ocana, those troops have no movement ability at all because they're out of command. So I'm just setting it up as a set-piece battle. I may try a meeting engagement in some other battle, but I have the feeling you're going to have to add rules more than what's here. And then there's rules for the French entering, and I just... the way this was all worded was just too much for me. Okay, likewise, the special rules for the battle are also not well written. The base rules for the game, I think, have been through so many iterations that certain language problems have been more resolved, or maybe at least, even if it's not a linguistic thing, maybe the rules have been nailed down a little more because people wanted to know, you know, what the game means for every scenario. So for this battle, so this is a weird phrasing too. For this battle only, the difficult terrain blocks the line of sight when it completely crosses one full hex of difficult terrain before reaching the target. Okay, I think that makes sense, right? If I fire through a hex, I'm going to get the difficult terrain penalty. That sounds kind of like what I'd expect. Is it different? No, that's more or less what the rules seem to say. Okay. Let's keep going, because that gets more interesting. If the target is in a difficult terrain, but the hex in front of it, or it is clear. There's a lot of little typos like that. No big deal. You can usually get them. Then the line is not blocked. Yeah, you don't need a special rule so far as I'm concerned. Moreover, a single hex of difficult terrain does not block the line of sight. What the fuck? Okay. I understand, right? Now, the difficult terrain blocks the line of sight when it completely crosses a full hex. If the target is in... moreover, a single hex of difficult terrain does not block the line of sight. I think what they mean is you need two everything's the same as normal, except it requires two hexes of difficult terrain, not one full hex like it says earlier. The town of Ocana is on high ground. It is therefore impossible to attack from below. Well, why do I have troops in it then? At least as many as I do. The documents from the time clearly show the steep change, and the French staff ignored the town. I assume that's a rule, that you can't attack from these lower hexes. I'm not sure why I'm so heavily settled in the town. In my setup, I kind of had to put that many units in though. So, and the leader. All right. Let's go. Command and control. Arizaga is the only Spanish leader. He's like a normal army leader, but his command range is 6 hexes. He can give 1 order per turn in upper levels of command roles. Well, there's nobody to listen to him, so screw that, right? Joseph can command only his guard, which happens to be like 3 units that's near him. Maybe. 2 of them or one of them's a Spanish unit that maybe is not part of his guard. That's not clear. Okay. All the battle was delegated to Sul, who is a normal army leader with a range of 10 hexes. We're not using range, we're using the dispatch distances. For the battle, Mortier can command all the infantry. Yeah. Okay, well, we got a problem there, but he's got a 6 hex range, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you know. He can command most of the line, so I can get most of the French line moving if need be. And Sebastiani, all of the cavalry. Oh, that's good. These 3 corps leaders have a command range of 6 hexes. Okay, so it seems Soule also has corps command ability. I guess. Not sure. Maybe they mean Joseph. Given that our army leader is the only possibility of Spanish units moving, I think maybe the army leader generally has corps command. Perhaps that's in the rules, I don't remember it. And they can move after the first turn if they're within 10 hexes or under of Soule. No, I'm beginning to say that's Joseph as a corps commander instead. I don't know. In the upper levels of command rules, Soule can give 2 orders per turn. Normally the French get 3. There's so few commanders, though. The convent, over here. This is a fortified hex, but not as strong as Hujma. Well, that's great. It's considered as a town, so I guess that's not a fortified village anymore. Cav and artillery can't enter, as though it were a fortified village. Fire is reduced by 3, as if it were a fortified village. Looks exactly like one so far. And the melee value is reduced by 2. All right. Maximum of 1 per... Yeah. Other than this maximum of 1 per hex of attack, it looks like the full fortified village rules. Maybe they should have just distinguished what's different. It's more expensive. Oh. I guess it's cheaper for infantry to move into, too. I really don't know. I'm not seeing much difference between it and a fortified village. Yeah, I don't know. Because this other column here has to do with Cav not, aren't allowed in it. Well, Cav aren't allowed in this, so. The army morale, the Spanish army's got 44 units and 191 steps. The French 32 units and 125 steps. Yes, the French are tiny comparatively. And it looks it on the field, doesn't it? French demoralization is 63. Their desperate level is 87. And Spanish is 65, desperate 95. These Spanish levels are lower than the normal. Oh, errata. Except it's, like, not really. Joseph's Guard totals 2,400 men and 2 regiments. Others also include 2 Spanish battalions. So now there is no French Unit 17. There's French Unit 17A, B, and C. And C, I think, is the Spanish strength points. I guess if you want it, you could withdraw. You could remove them from the battle. I'm going to use them because, again, I'm not sure this is errata. This seems more like, special notes or something, designer's notes that have been added to the end of the scenario, but whatever. And we'll give this a try. My condition is not very good, unfortunately, and this is a game that is going to require a lot of lookups because there's not a lot on the charts, or there's a lot missing from the charts. There's a lot on the chart. I mean, the terrain effects charts is a monster to begin with, but this table has, or this one chart has a fair amount of information on it, but there's quite a bit that's not. And the biggest problem is the stuff that's not on there is largely all the advanced stuff that, honestly, I'm not sure I would play this game if it wasn't for it. If I'm going to play this light version of this, I'll play Triumph and Glory instead. If I'm going to play the heavy version of this, I had already committed to the Napoleonic Brigade series, but it petered out. And now my hope is this is probably the closest in lineage to it as a series, with the written order, you know, with some of the orders rules. It's not as detailed an order system, though. So, although the rules don't explicitly say it, I think the army commander has the capability to order his own units. Anything under his command. So, at least for the Spaniards. I'm not sure I'm going to use it with the French, but in the case of the French, that gives them quite, if they have that, that gives them quite a bit of capability. But for the Spaniards, we'll just treat him as a corps commander who, you know, doesn't need written orders. And it's not like the written orders acceptance system in NBS. I think I forgot the Spanish cavalry. I think I forgot to announce the Spanish cavalry special conditions against them, beyond not having a leader over there at all. And this should have probably applied during the pre-battle. When a Spanish cavalry unit is attacked by cavalry on its flank or rear, there is no melee. Disorder is automatic. If the melee has a chance to be more bloody, then roll dice and apply at least a disorder. So, given the fact that they wouldn't have any capability to move, now they would have countercharge ability, which might just have broken the French, but they wouldn't have been able to launch those attacks on the French at all in the pre-battle. Anyway, and the fact that, you know, if they get attacked from the rear, they're just screwed, or flank. So as the French got closer, if they didn't get close enough to be countercharged, which is what, 1 hex and I think 2 under the optional rolls, with light cav. I'm not sure the Spaniards had a light cav. We can see. Does not look like it. These are the guys who were there, and here's some more cav up here. And those are all just pretty pointless. Unless the leader goes over to them. For the French, well, I went through some real interesting things. So the Spaniards, as far as I'm concerned, don't need orders. Because it's always going to be in-person verbal type orders for him to command his own. Soule, however, has given out some orders, and not much. I found myself not really feeling the need for the kind of detail in orders that I use in NBS. That level of detail is acceptable, but I feel like it's a lighter game and I should use a little less. So for Sebastiani, I came close. Clear the Spanish cav and then proceed to harass the flank's rear. That probably is not quite in the detail I would give in NBS, but it's similar in orders. But with Mortier, I had a, well, what the hell? I mean, there's only one thing to do. It's just attack right up the middle. So I wrote, hi diddle diddle. Yeah, I figure I can probably get new orders to him as the situation changes if I need to roll up a flank one side or the other. But I don't know which direction I want to go in. So my main goal is just punch a hole in that line and then see what happens. And Soule can give him additional orders. For Joseph, it's just defend in place. He's got a lot of artillery here. It's kind of hard to see the different units in this game. Because of the way they're expressed as lines, the artillery have a lot less little figures on them. Now, there's other units stacked with those artillery to stiffen them a little bit. I hope I got Spanish artillery should be on top too. The Spaniards had to set up first. I don't think this is anything. This is just a couple of trees. I think it counts as any kind of terrain. And I conglomerated the artillery around the town. I feel like the town is going to be my way of perhaps surviving this. Did I go through the victory conditions? I don't think so. Okay, so if the Spanish army survives without getting demoralized, the Spanish win a great victory. If they're just demoralized, they get a minor victory. If they're desperate, the French get a minor victory. And if every single Spanish unit is destroyed, the French win. Not a single unit left in good order or without a loss. Okay, so if every unit is damaged or disordered, and I guess that's I would assume you have to at least have desperate morale as well. We'll do them in order. So if the French don't get, if the unit is not demoralized or desperate, the Spanish are going to get a victory whether or not all their units have taken a hit or something. I may need to make more skirmishers for this battle. There aren't even enough, and this is a fairly small one. So looking over the optional roles, I decided, you know, I'm not going to remember all these. So I made myself a little cheat sheet. It's got, you know, not very much information, but I think the things that I'll probably need at least reminders of, hey, you got to go look in the rules for this. As to the skirmishers, basically each unit can throw 2 of them out for the most part. So, you know, even if you're out alone in line formation, you can throw a couple of skirmishers out. I'm not quite sure what that'll do. It's strength points off of here, I guess, step levels that you're sending out. For the most part, they just allow a layer of fire as the opponent moves forward. So they get an opt fire when they enter a Voltigeur hex from a front hex, which I don't know if that's terribly different. I'm not sure. I think opt fire came when you leave, so that kind of makes sense. So you take a fire as you're coming into the enemy. I don't think they're going to have much effect on the game, and honestly, they're probably a bit of detail that's just not terribly useful. But the thing is, the light unit breakdown, which is only the lights can kind of do this, and they get a larger range firepower. You know, maybe that actually makes more sense in terms of the scale of the game. But we'll see how this works out. I know I kind of like the idea of there being skirmishers out there, but I don't know how much difference they make if you've always got them, you know. If a unit always has them out there, well, it just makes attacking a little bit harder. Not even that, because as your main unit is advancing, it's got a cloud of skirmishers, and they kind of cancel each other out. If one enters the other's hex, they both reintegrate, and so there's no effect to them. We're going to open up with cav charges over on the French side. That's the beginning of their turn. One thing that I want to consider, though, it's in my head because I'm still thinking about the command rules. One of the things that's missing from the command rules here that's in the NBS series is the idea of a unit falling out of orders, of a corps or whatever, falling out of orders. It may be a little less likely in the Napoleonic period for a leader to take the initiative to say, yeah, my unit's had enough, at a point at which the overall commander may not agree. He may think that it's important to keep pressing the attack, whatever. And that's something that I like in the NBS CWB series. Even though maybe it happens a little too much in NBS compared to the, you know, in the Napoleonic era, the officers were more likely to follow orders completely than they were in the American Civil War. But I think the charts in NBS eventually reflect that correctly to some extent. Here, there's just no chance. A unit can get mauled and mauled, and Musket and Pike has the similar situation, which is once you disorder every unit in a command, which I think is a little extreme, like I feel like that's a point at which you really, as the overall commander, you would agree, yeah, it's time for this to happen. Your attack fails. There's no automatic situation that can destroy an attack order. And that would be something that I would consider adding, you know, since this is essentially a kit anyway. And it may actually give you a hint as to the kind of order system, how to impose an easy order system on something like Labatt, if you want to do that. So that, you know, you don't have to worry about all the intricacies of the NBS order system. But again, you know, I'm going to try to play this by the rules as much as we can. Anyway, back to this cav charge. Since I'm not sure how badly I did with the Ocana, Kyle Seeley, who is also playing this at the same time, came up with some corrections to it. But for example, I think I hit and didn't account for disrupted cav properly. And I may do it again, but we're going to try doing this more correctly. So I'm going to launch some charges. Now, who knows what I've done here? But remember, no die roll for the initial charge, which I find a little weird. But it's not like you have to make a die roll to attack. So 1, 2. I think we want to hit individual units and not let his numbers take advantage. 3. Okay. Now, as we hit here, and if it had been in 2 hexes, lights could try, we get to make a countercharge check. And that is a morale check. The only reason this is around is so I can see the morale. Wow, these have crappy morale. So that looks like a 6. Okay, they do not get to make a morale check, and that means I'm going to put this little post-charge marker. I'm not sure what it's exactly meant for, but I need something to remind me that I'm launching a charge and I don't have anything else to do it. So that's what I'm going to do for that. No, not Sir Baloney, but Sebastiani. 1, 2, 3. And we're hitting here. Now he's already charged, and I should mark it like that. So he's not allowed to try to countercharge, but this guy still is. And he really wants to, because getting hit is not a good thing. And he also fails. So we'll put a little charge marker there. Now these don't get resolved yet. They'll get resolved over in the French melee phase. All right, I prepare for my move here with the French. I realize, you know, the skirmishers can basically be ignored, right? I've talked about that. Although they serve a purpose someplace like here, where I've decided that they really can't be deployed because you're not allowed to assault up there. Actually, they probably can be. Let's get them in place. I'm just thinking, it's that you can't assault, it's not that you can't move. So skirmishers would have no problem pooping out here. Now, does that mean we have an extra unit of skirmishers deployed? Probably not. There's probably a light in here, but we're all going in that direction. I think we're fine. So even if they're all just lines, I don't think there are any militia in here. There's also a notional line of skirmishers here, which I'm not going to worry about unless there's a breakthrough. I don't have, you know, I'm out at the end of my line, really, in terms of skirmishers. But what I was thinking is these skirmisher rules take away the advantage that light infantry has. Now, maybe the light infantry advantage was just too much. Firepower out at range 2 or whatever, although I think it was reduced firepower, if I recall correctly. I'm just trying to really get a grasp on this system, and I still don't really have it. In terms of, you know, is there much here No, they only go out, their firepower is reduced by 2, which probably, since I think most of those units are actually 3-point units, which can entirely break down anyway, I think that actually means, well, no, because only one skirmisher can fire from a given hex. So I don't know. I don't know what effect that has. And given that all other units have skirmishers and can basically block those out, it basically means the Voltigeurs, the light units that can that could fire at long range, don't really have any advantage at all. And that kind of disappoints me. I like to see more discrimination between units, but because here it looks to me like, you know, infantry is really infantry. There's nothing like the NBS system which says, you know, your skirmishers are gone. You're not getting them back. At least the later versions. The first version of the NBS had really weird skirmishers. They were just stragglers that you like stuck out in front of your units. But yeah, here it doesn't look like they're going to do much. So I got to look at my orders. Yeah, up the middle. Okay. So to me that means I was going to hit focusing here. And I think, you know, we can start our movement. There's not much to it, really. So what we do, let's see, our skirmishers are heading this way. So I'm going to actually start with this unit, well, over here. I'm going to move this unit a movement away. Do I want to move another one? I don't think that's consistent with my orders, but I think I will very shortly. Okay, this next unit is moving here, which teleports the skirmisher forward. That's one movement point. I think I do want to start pushing forward here. So 2 movement points. Now these 2 skirmishers just disappear. Okay. Which means I could keep pushing forward for a 3rd movement point. But I want to hold off. I want to kind of bring an echelon into play here. So 1 movement point, 2 movement points, skirmishers disappear. I should have actually written an echelon, but it's not really because it's going to be a dual echelon. Do I want to keep pushing forward here? I think I'll hold. 1 movement point, 2 movement points. We cancel the skirmishers again. And now a 3rd movement point. And, you know, as you can see, I'm going to start hitting across the middle, and then I'll slope over and have an echelon on the other side. So I'm attacking kind of a V formation here to try to pierce the Spanish line, and then from there I'll be able to hopefully, well, I don't think the commanders are being hopeful about it, but it's hard to tell, or the troops. But you know the meaning of the idiom. To try and then react to what's going on there. Now the reaction is a tricky thing because the orders are just to punch through the middle. So Sul is going to have to be the one making the reaction and sending new orders. You'll notice the skirmishers aren't entirely without use, unless this happens to be a light unit, in which case it could have spawned another one to knock this out, because I didn't spawn skirmishers back here or I unspawned them. I moved them back for a very particular reason. Each skirmisher, I'm not sure if it's each or if it's any, provides a -1 to fire combat, and that means my artillery advantage up on for the French side is being hurt by my hordes of skirmishers as well as by the Allied hordes. So they serve a purpose at a distance in that sense. But also, what we see here around the edges, where I've got, see these 2 guys I think were in one stack, or these 2 were, where I've got units coming forward, there's a slight advantage of skirmishers that were already deployed by the Spaniards, which means that they're going to get an extra single fire from skirmishers. Now that's a 1-point fire, so it's probably not too important. Now let me just make sure that none of these are lights. We're looking at 002, somewhere 004, stuff like that. No, these guys are not lights. These guys look like Dutch and Germans, allies here. I don't have many lights here. Here we do. 17B is a light. That's going to be over with Joseph, and I could probably, deploy skirmishers, or deploy that sucker with a couple of skirmishers out there to prevent an outflank. I'm not too worried about the Spaniards doing anything in this scenario, though. They have almost no command capability. I wanted to talk. I'm a little unused to doing the vids right now because of my illness and whatever. And I'm capturing, a new game here. But I wanted to talk a little bit about one of Kyle's responses that I did not address. I forgot about, actually, which is the asterisks on the tables. So the melee table has numbers and asterisks, and I made a confusion based on the fire table, where an asterisk is the morale check, but a numbered result is also considered to generate a morale check, as noted here. But over here, there's no morale check on the losses that don't have an asterisk. And it makes sense. Melee is going to be close range fire and possibly actual melee, which means that more melee here than there would be in a Civil War game, which means that the units are expected to take losses in a way that long-range fire can be a disincentive to engage, whereas these units are trained to operate at close range, taking casualties. So in terms of the game system, yeah, it makes sense to represent those a little differently. I don't know if they were saving just tiny amounts of ink by not putting asterisks on all of these, or just didn't want to be obnoxious about it. I understand it. It's just, I ruminated on this question, as I do on a lot of stupid things, right? Okay, I think we're on the defensive fire phase. And this is where you might say, well, the Spaniards should have left their guns unshielded. Yeah, maybe. But again, the French have the preponderance of artillery up there, so it's probably to the Spaniards' best move to have that screened. We'll get to that in a moment. So now we'll go down the line for defensive fire. And the first thing to note is we do not have a fire opportunity here. And offensive fire is going to work the same way, coming in reverse, French to Spanish. But the Spaniards get the first shot. We don't have a fire here because the skirmishers are not considered units, so I can't even target them. So again, they don't have a lot of effect. Coming over here, I gotta look for artillery. That's where I'm gonna get my shot. And I've got some artillery here, and then some more here. No, looks like I only got one gun here. So let's take a look, cause he may have range. Now I gotta get used to these numbers. His range is 6 hexes, and he's got a fire value of 5, the red number up there. Okay, so I probably only want to shoot through one skirmisher unit. I don't want to hit the castle, so 1, 2, 3, 4 hexes away. Okay. 4 hexes away is going to drop me down to the 1 table anyway. A skirmisher in the way drops me down to 0, but I believe you always get a 1 minimum. I have to look that up. Well, let me roll a die and see. I'll come back if I'm wrong about that at some point. Okay, so that's not going to hit, and there's no ammo depletion or anything like that going on in here. This isn't that complicated a design. So we continue down, and we get to more artillery here. Now I probably want to combine these, although we're kind of close here, so maybe we want to fire in close. So let's see what we got. We got 5 firepower at range 2 with some skirmishers in the way. Uh, 5's pretty far up on the chart. I'm going to get a really good shot on this unit. So yeah, I'm probably going to split these. So 5 at range 2. Yeah, minimum 1 up to maximum range. Oh, that actually reduced the fire value. And no, we weren't targeting a skirmish. Those just add another point of penalty, I think. Ah, jeez. Now I gotta look up what their effect is. It's so hard for me to find anything in here. I just had this where they give the -1, but I don't know what it's to. And it's not, you know, it's not integrated into the damn charts because it's an optional rule, as is half the game. Yeah, they reduce the final fire value, so I did that correctly. It drops the fire table down. It could essentially be the same, except like at range, at a fire value of 1, I can't. Now here's interesting. If target is skirmish, it's dice -1. Huh. Maybe there is supposed to be fire here. It says you can only fire, that you fire at units, and that these things aren't to be treated as units, but this seems to countermand that. You know, again, as with the Azure Wish rules, you kind of have to interpret these and try to figure out what they mean. It's like trying to read, you know, law. When you read law, you start looking at it and you say, well, this contradicts itself. How can this be? Well, somebody's interpreted it somewhere. Okay, so what are we doing? We're trying to fire this artillery piece. It's got a 5-point gun out at range 2. Now, this is weird because artillery fire says -1 per hex from fire to target, which to me means you'll never have your full fire value. Is that what they mean? Damned if I know. It's what the, you know, what the definition seems to say. So let's see if there's rules on that. Okay, so I'm not seeing sort of a general modifier there. And yeah, they say the further an artillery fires, the less efficient its fire is. Yeah, but they don't specify the what there. And, you know, range is obviously because unless you're allowed to fire 2 hexes out with infantry, 1 hex is what it seems to mean, right? Let's see if that's covered, because maybe, you know, I know some games count this as 1 hex distance. Titan is 1, isn't it? No, Titan counts, this is 2 hexes distance. If you've got a unit here and a unit adjacent to it, that's 2 hex. Some people decide to count things weird. Maybe intervening hexes is what they mean by distance. Let's see. No, they don't really specify, but they do here say this is opportunity fire for an artillery unit, which is defined as 2 hexes somewhere over here. So I guess they're using hex counting normally. I'm going to have to say that artillery is always reduced in strength. I don't know how big a deal that's going to be, but that's the way the chart seems to read, and I'm not going to countermand it. Okay, so we're at range 2 with a skirmisher in the way. So I think we're on the 2 chart. Maybe there's an example somewhere. You know, I don't like reading examples. I don't remember seeing one. But I know sometimes people catch me and say, oh no, the rule obviously means this. There's an example. Well, put word the rule right. I don't think this game has that kind of example though, but maybe. So I'm on the 2 table instead of like the huge table that I thought I was going to be on. Still not too bad. On a 5 or a 6 I can hit. I do not. Okay. 4 there. Now we fire this artillery at this other unit here. And I'm on 5, 4, 3 table. Without a skirmisher. So I would have been out on the 5 table with the other one. 3 table means I need a 4 or better. I probably should have combined them. I don't even get a morale check there. Now let's go over to the infantry fire. Well, infantry fire, oh, these are not very potent. I think we combine fire on the 3 table against this unit. We want to try to break them up. The French don't have terribly much either. This is the Napoleonic period. Okay, so we got a hit. Let me find my little thing so I can mark where I am on the firepower. I got a hit on this unit, which I can't read without glasses. 003 without reading glasses on top of my glasses. So 003 takes a hit. French 003. And that is a real hit. And because this is a fire hit, it has to make a morale check. And of course, as with the gamers games, I could roll, you know, the dice and the morale check at the same time if I so desired. So, morale is, I think, the green number. Yeah, which is a 7 on this one. And we roll under, so we're good. Now over here, I think I'm going to fire 2 at the unit without the leader. It's so unlikely to hurt a leader. 1 casualty is not going to do it, because that'll allow me to fire 3 at this unit. And I kind of don't want to go lower on the table, but I also, I don't know. All right. You know, the assessment of how valuable it is for finding certain firing lanes, I kind of like the 3 table because that gives me a 50-50 shot. But you know, it's pretty linear. Every fire value has its own thing, so it's not like I'm trying to find a slot. Although obviously between the 6 and the 7 means I don't get a morale check on any of these. Between the 3 and the 4 means I don't do as much additional damage, but I do get more morale checks, which could break up an enemy attack better. So, you know, there might be little subtle things that I can do with the table here. Okay, I get a big 5. That's going to be a hit over here, and I'm really going to need, you know, to back away. I don't see any point to recording all of this in front of you. So we went down and kind of got 1 hit against each unit as we continued down the line. And now over here, since they have a modifier for shooting at skirmishers, I'm assuming you can shoot at them even though the rules say differently. That rough terrain, it may give a modifier as well. Let's see. There were special rules on rough terrain here. Which strangely are not encoded in here, even though it has per scenario terrain, or maybe they weren't. What is it? It's difficult terrain. Okay. It's supposed to have a -1 on target. It's got some special line of sight effects that are really badly worded. I don't see any modifier, so I think to the rules on it there. So I think it is at -1. That's -1 to what? It's an effect on fire combat. Okay, let's see. All right, terrain is not listed here. Like the effective terrain there. So we go back to the rules and try to see whether terrain is a die roll modifier. Well, wait a minute. We're on the 1 table because we're a skirmisher firing with -1. We can't hit. Skirmishers can't hit other skirmishers. Okay, good enough. And they can't combine fire either, so you can't have like, you know, a horde of skirmishers hitting one unit, which has been a problem in some games. Much worse is the Wellington's victory, where I don't remember this because I played Quatre, the Ney versus Wellington game by SPI, which was based on that. And I don't recall one way or the other, but apparently you could stack all your skirmishers up and have a hugely potent unit, which is just a stack of skirmishers, which could just move quicker and was resistant to being hit and could mass tremendous firepower. Something along those lines. This game takes care of that and prevents that issue from happening. Anyway, now we come back with the defensive fire, and we'll step back up in because we had an interesting result. The Spaniard got blown away from here, failed a morale check. This indicates how many turns from now, well, what turn we can rally on. So it was placed on turn 1, and this is one reason why the turn tracks, it may be important to have the game start on turn 1, is that there's more of these turn 1 counters than turn 2, 3, etc. Of course, once we get to turn 6, that changes around, right? There's more turn 6 counters than there are for the later ones, but it does create a rationale for why time is why the different time periods are shifted to the first turn, second turn, whatever. Now, if you were, here's why it might not make sense. What you might want is some negative turn counters for these earlier, because the approach battle, chances are there isn't going to be much fighting until you get around 10 a.m. So that's, you know, turn 5 though, so we're starting back over at turn 6. We may see more counters come into play there. You're not going to see as much disruption probably happening later in the game, the way this is designed. So it might actually make sense to, I don't know, you know, start on a later turn and just make a guesstimate there. I'm not sure which way makes more sense, to tell you the truth. Anyway, so we knocked this out of the way. We had no effect up to here, but now we've got an artillery attack. I'm firing both these guns at counter battery here. 1, 2, 3, 4 hexes. I've got firepower of 6 on each of these, so that adds up. 6 minus 4 is 2 each, so that ends up to 4 firepower. There's going to be a -1 to the die roll though, because of the skirmisher. And I ended up rolling something that had an effect, I thought, but maybe I didn't. There's a good chance that we'll get a hit. This is a little different because it's counter battery fire. So I ended up rolling a 201. That doesn't have an effect there. So now let's go look for the next artillery piece. And we've got a pair of 5s. See, I kind of don't want to shoot into the town because I assume that, yeah, there's a -2 to targeting in the town. Not exactly something I want to do. Okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4 at the artillery here. You can't put artillery in the town. I hope I didn't. Well, you can't have unlimbered artillery in the town. Okay, so these guys were 5s, right? So they turn into 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got a stupid skirmisher in the way, which I shouldn't have left there. Yeah, I got another one here. So 1, 2, 3, 4 hexes away. So these are each 1. That's 2, with a -1 for the skirmisher, which means I'm going to need a 6 to actually hit. because we're doing counter battery fire too, so it's only going to do half a hit at best. So that's the French counter fire. Notice I made one of these. I figure they're useful. Now we got to make melee decisions. I'll be back after I think about those. French units are numerically smaller, and there doesn't seem to be a bonus for morale level or anything like that. So I probably want to make combined attacks. Now the melee number is this little number here. I could add 4 plus a leader morale level, I think. Let's see. Again, attacking leader, defending leader. Doesn't say what the modifier actually is. It might be a -1 per leader, or a bonus per leader. Or I don't see any die roll modifiers. Maybe it's a strength modifier. We weren't counting terrain. No, terrain's not going to be anything, I hope. Yeah. Morale level is multiplied by steps. Oh, geez, I haven't put enough thought into this. Steps is the black number. That's kind of the size. So these would have 4 times 7. We need to think. All right. And we still don't know where we are in terms of the modifier. Modified by a leader. Maybe it's in the leader rules, wherever those are. Let's go find them. I'll be back later. So now remember, units take losses, right? Well, that's not on the board very easily. That's in my sheet of paper here, or whatever. So units 12, 11, and 3 are in play. 3 is only 2 steps. 11 and 12 are a total of 13 steps. So I'm probably going to be putting 26 factors against this thing. Now this thing is unit 8. Sorry about the blur. My zoom doesn't work very well. Unit 8 is 6 steps, so it's got a value of 12. So I've got a 2-to-1 attack. That sounds fair. I probably don't want to make any others, just because I'm hitting fairly big units. So I'm not going to look too carefully at the others. Okay, so 2-to-1. My leader is going to use his... He actually has an attack bonus. So let's look for our leaders here. We have a combat bonus and a morale bonus. The red is the combat bonus. So I'm 2-to-1 at +2. And let's see what we get. I think it's only 1 die roll. The way the chart is, though, it might be a die roll for each. A die is rolled. Okay. And then we look at the results. Oh, that can't be good. So the attacker takes a step loss. The defender takes a step loss and an asterisk, which means a morale check. I'd like the attacker to take the step loss on the unit without the leader if that affects leader casualties. Let's go look back at leaders. And again, learning a new system is always a pain in the butt, especially when you know that it does some kind of unexpected things, as this one does. All right, I can't find leaders. I was just at them. Here they are. Elimination. Fire combat 2 or 3 steps. Right? That loses... Looks like melee combat cannot hurt your leader. Only fire combat. Okay, I'll live with that. I'm not sure I totally believe it because some of these guys really did lead from the front. But I assume they would take it during the fire combat phase, I guess. I don't know. So where were we? So 2 units are taking hits. So, well, 0081 is taking a hit. There's no question there. Okay. You don't have to attack, say, the units you fired at or anything like that. I hope. I don't remember anything like that. I think you can just attack what you like. Okay. And now the French can take one on 11 or 12. I'd like to keep my losses kind of distributed if I can. So I'll take it on 11 since it's not going to hurt me. I don't have to make a morale check for the French, but I do for the Spaniards. And they hold. Now we got these charges to resolve. They're already predetermined. Sebastiani is hitting. I gotta look up Cav because I think, yeah, these things have a morale. They have a melee strength, right? They have a melee value. Yes, I think so. Yeah, we don't have a breakdown of Cav in particular. And they have a size, which is something I think I may have screwed up in my game. So we've got 13 times 3, 39 strength points for the Spaniards. Oh, there are special rolls. To only 30 for the French charge? Really? Wow. What am I doing wrong? Where am I getting this 39 from? Looks like 15 to me. I'm multiplying the 2 left-hand numbers on each one. 15 to 30, so that's going to be 2 to 1. But there are special rules for the French, or for the Spanish, but they're not very important. I'm not being attacked in a flank. Okay, so it's 2 to 1. Sebastiani gives me +1. These are lights hitting regular though, which I believe is a -1. So we're 2 to 1 at even as far as I can tell. And I get a 4. Just going to be a 1 and a D. So I take a step loss from the French. And that's 21, I think. I can't see. Yeah, my Zoom's working better than it used to for a while. Seems to have unbroken. It's got to be the top unit that takes. The Spaniards do not take that, but they take a disorganized, which drops them back 2 spaces. The French may advance. Now, there's a possibility of a follow-through attack here, so I'm going to leave that there and consider that opportunity. Because I'll be able to hit this in the flank, which sounds pretty good. Yeah, let's go with that. Okay. So I come in, I'm allowed a 60-degree turn, which I take so that I can do this. And now I got to pay attention not to the counters because size matters. So we're no longer 30, we're 5 less? 5 is my melee value on these suckers. Sure looks like it. Unless that's squared red, in which case it would be fire value. Yeah, I'm 5 less. I'm only 25, and I'm hitting these 2, which are 36 and 37. Obviously, they haven't taken hits. They're not very big. 12, so I still have a 2 to 1 against them. But I'm hitting against the flank, which means I still have to roll a die. And from how I see that these work, there is no melee. Disorder is automatic. But as for artillery, if the melee has a chance to be more the bloody, okay, so I guess that means I only do more results to the defender than I could possibly. So I'm still at 2 to 1 because I'm at 25 to whatever. And I'm still at +1 for the leader. I'm still at -1 for the different types of cav. So I ignore the 1 to the French, I think, and all I get is a disorder for the Spaniards. Now I have, again, an opportunity to march in. That would put me in kind of an ugly position. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to march in. I feel pretty safe that we're going to clear this and that I can withdraw easily. I remember that I can blow disordered cav without penalty though, so maybe I just want to do that. That's not the right rule book. Over somewhere in the optional rules, maybe I have this summarized somewhere. Light, no check to retreat. Yeah, I'm not sure I see that there. Alright. Yeah, I don't think I can blow them without disordering. I feel safe here though, because if the infantry starts moving towards me, I can do a cav retreat without any check at all. So that sounds good. All right, so we have another charge here, I guess, and it looks to me like we have 30 strength points hitting a lot. No, it can't be. See, what confuses me is that the layout of the counters is a little different. To 15. So we've got 2 to 1 here. These aren't lights, so it's a straight up, no leader bonus, nothing exciting. And it's from the front. So, actually, yeah, that's from the front. Okay, terrible roll. This is the 1. The French only have to make a morale check. Our morale is very good, though, at 9. So we hold up. And that's the French half of the turn, more or less. We have some other things available, which is rally, but nothing can rally because it would have to have been disordered at least 2 turns ago. I don't think I want to pause in the midst of a half turn, or halfway through a turn, and then play the rest of the battle, including the next half of the turn on the next video, which is very likely. So this is going to be a longer video than I normally like to make. Tactically, at least, we're in an interesting position here. The Spanish cav could charge, presuming that they don't need to be in command control to do so. I'm not positive of that. I haven't checked that yet. But if they do so, and I left these post-charge markers on, that's what they're for the option that says, hey, you're charging, or you charged last turn, you can't charge in your next turn. But that doesn't preclude a counter charge. So even though the French units are, used, they do have the possibility to defend themselves. And that's key here, because if the Spaniards turned and, say, attacked these French from the rear, there's a very good chance that this unit would get a countercharge into their rear. Because of the ordering of things, the countercharge takes effect immediately. The charge wouldn't take effect until after the countercharge has been survived over in the melee phase. Long, long behind, but that doesn't really matter. It's just, the strict ordering. That would mean that the Spanish unit is likely to get disordered before the French take any damage. In fact, they're guaranteed to be disordered. What I probably want to do here is try to pull away. And that I think I'm allowed to do, because this is the light cav, the one that extends out 2 hexes with its reaction moves. So I think I can get out of there. Whether I can move is another question now. So my only way out may be to blow the cav, which I don't really like the idea of. Here I might be forced in again, like I say, it's a war game kit more than an actual game with these rules, to override some of the optional rules. The basic rules are pretty solid, I would guess, but the options somewhat more questionable. Oh, by the way, I marked down, this is at the end of halfway through turn 1. I thought I was done with the full turn when I wrote it down for some reason, even though I know I'm very tired, okay? I knew I was coming back for the second half. Under the second level, the command radius, it defines out of command units. Now, it doesn't define them terribly well, as most things. Out of command units cannot voluntarily exit their hex except if they attempt to come back within their commander's radius. Now, their commander's radius is the Spanish general in charge, which, you know, I could run that way, I guess. I don't know for sure what my restrictions are. But an exception, disorganized units will move well. Yeah, but it doesn't say I can blow cav. Now here is the list of things that I can do as an out-of-command unit. And if it's exhaustive, I can't blow my cav. Because the list does not include that. For cav, it specifies charging into adjacent hexes, like a countercharge. Countercharge or withdraw before combat. So not a countercharge, just something like a countercharge, i.e. I'm adjacent as if I could countercharge. So then can light cav do it at 2 hexes? You know, because they'd be allowed to, I don't know. These kind of questions are, but what is left out is the intentional disorder, which I don't like the idea of. I can do the cav withdrawal, which is retreating a couple of hexes and then making a morale check, but nowhere does it say I can do this. Now, I think I should be allowed to do that. The intentional withdrawal would allow me to get out of an infantry attack, but I can't get out of a cav attack, can I? Yeah, you cannot retreat if charged by enemy cav or disorganized. There might be a special rule for heavy cav hitting, you know, something, or light cav might be able to withdraw. I'd have to look that up away from other cav. But as far as I'm concerned, I should be allowed to blow the cav and push it into a retreat. So I'm going to just allow that at this point to get me out of there. It's not really what I want to do because they'll be disordered, but I'm so outnumbered. And I'm not going to get a chance to do anything except a countercharge. Well, nah, maybe it's better just to leave them here. Because at least I'd have a chance of a countercharge in that case. Although, we might be in some danger. Alright. So no attacks with the cav. We've got a 6 hex range from our general as to whether we want to move anything with orders that don't really allow movement. Although if we're within the range, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, these guys are, we can shift up and help fill in the gap. Other things that's not regulated well by the rules, and you know, it's funny because I have this kind of complaint about some mini systems as well, but I don't think I've ever seen one that is as vague as this in term and ambiguous. Has to do with the optional rule on the skirmishers. I can deploy them, it says. Doesn't say when, which I took to at least mean that if I just canceled skirmishers out with skirmishers, I can't immediately deploy a new one into the hex that I just cleared. Because that would just be goofy, right? I'm not sure what the specifics around that are. If I were to word this, I'd have to be very careful, and maybe this is why the rules aren't so ironclad, because you would have to be very careful to make sure that you word it in such a way to get what you intend. Now, unfortunately, what's intended is not absolutely clear. So, for example, could the French poop one out to hit, I don't know, if I had a different situation, if I had a couple of units here, could I hit one unit with one and then poop one out into the next unit? If this was all very rigorously defined, it might be possible to understand what the implications are. As it stands, there's just no chance. Which is to say, I'm not going to allow somebody to drop a second skirmisher into a hex that's just been cleared of skirmishers, no matter what. That's going to be kind of my rule of thumb. It makes sense, you know, but it's not absolutely certain that that's what the designer intended. Anyway, onward. It kind of disturbs me compared to what I know from other game designs. I've been starting to fire my fire on counter battery fire, which is of course what I'm used to doing with long range artillery fire, is that actually artillery in this game is better against infantry formations at long range than it is against artillery formations. Now granted, you know, those Napoleonic artillery are not rifled, but smoothbore artillery from the American Civil War era was essentially the same as the Napoleonic artillery. And that's always given a serious problem at shooting at infantry formations, which are, you know, presumably strung out in thin lines without canister, trying to hurt them with balls, as opposed to firing on fixed artillery targets, which could really be destroyed by a direct hit with the artillery ball. I'm not sure why the game makes the artillery more effective against the infantry than most other designs do. I don't remember anything from the designer's notes along that line, but you know, certainly there's these dense packed formations if you're in column or something, but we're not really seeing units advancing in column. Should be considering, if I'm trying to melee my way through, trying to end this game quickly, deploying into column so that, you know, attack column, not road column, so that I can smash the line more quickly with the melee attack. The fire attack is not terribly effective, and you can still throw skirmishers out so you can protect yourself, you know, at 1-for-1, so you can protect yourself from the enemy's firepower to some extent. At least their skirmisher firepower. Now, here we're at another interesting position where this modifier is again causing an issue. I just fired a couple of units on that skirmisher because of that modifier's existence, and they succeeded in hitting it. Time to make up some rules, because over in the skirmisher optional rules, there doesn't seem to be any indication that they can be fired on at all, fine, or where the losses come from. Well, I took the loss off of the parent unit, which seems appropriate, but I'm really not sure. Current situation as I'm working my way back through the Spaniards. One interesting thing to note, I got a flank attack here. That doesn't help you on the fire table, from what I can tell. It helps you over on the morale table. It gives a big penalty, -2 to the opponent's morale. But if you don't cause a casualty, now that's a little strange because, well, it may depend on how you're formed, but if you've got a line in flank, there's some argument that could be made, hey, you should get a bonus because you're shooting down the line. Now, the truth of the matter is, this line is almost certainly not just hanging out here, but is a little refused, and it's probably more reasonable not to give the bonus. It's just something that you're used to seeing in a lot of games that's not there here. You see the Spanish line kind of breaking in the middle with a significant number of units. 2 of them we had before, another one got chumped back, the guy who went back in there. Okay, fine. But we see some French falling back, and if we look at the numericals, we're at 9 French losses to 5 Spanish at the end of the turn. Additionally, there was a Spanish melee into this hex. I got 3-to-1 odds from 2 units. My units are bigger, and I hit kind of a already weakened French unit. I think this guy, the Hessians here, they're not, terribly impressive when it comes down to it, and a D1 sent them flying. So, right now the Spanish seem to be holding their own, and I'm going to have to try to figure out how to get the French to do just a little better. Now, I didn't advance in this hex because I would essentially just be asking for it. I can't throw skirmishers ahead either. That had to happen during movement into a clear hex. So I'm leaving things a little open there. We'll see what the French want to do about that. But with less troops overall, with lower numbers, slightly lower, for their army damage, the French really can't afford to be taking more losses than the Spaniards. We'll see if the Cav is able to make a significant headway here. But as of right now, we're not doing terribly well here. All right, I'm going to send this one up.